Hello, football fans in Hamilton, from coast to coast and around the world. This is the Fifth Quarter Show on YouTube. My name's Rick Zamperin, and here we are celebrating the last home game of the season for the Black and Gold, and celebrating in style. My gosh, what a performance tonight from Bo Levi Mitchell and the Hamilton Tiger Cats. It was a remarkable performance in the first half. The second half was a little bit of a different story, but the Ticats pull it out. 42-20 is the final. It was 30-0 at one point for the Black and Gold, but they go out in style. Hometown crowd of, well, at least the announced crowd of 22,410 going home happy. As always, there are a number of ways for you to hop on board and talk to me, message me. You can also go onto social media. X at Rick Zamperin is the handle. Offer your thoughts on tonight's game. Vote for your player of the game. You can do so on email, fifthquartershow@gmail.com, the number 5th, fifthquartershow@gmail.com. Send me an email. Some are already coming in from faithful fans who continue to email the show or hop onto the chat or call as well. The way the call works is, if you're new to the show or if you haven't called yet, there's a link in the chat. I'll continue to repost it throughout the show. Click on the link. I think you enter your name and your email, and then you're in the waiting room, and I'll bring you on the show. Lots to talk about tonight. Apart from the win, some milestones and a couple of biggies. Number one, Bo Levi Mitchell becoming the 5th Ticats quarterback ever to reach 5,000 passing yards in a single season. He joined Henry Burris, Danny McManus, Kevin Glenn, and Jeremiah Masoli, who last did it in 2018. And Bo Levi Mitchell is now a member of the 5,000-yard club. No, he did it a couple times with Calgary, but back in the 5,000-yard club once again with a arguably maybe the best performance of the season. I know he's had some really great games. He threw a career-high 5 touchdowns against Edmonton several weeks ago, and we're all gushing about his performance then. Tonight, I think was even better. 24 of 37, 450 yards, 5 touchdowns, 1 interception. And he could have had a lot more yards. He probably could have had over 500 yards tonight. The pass to Stephen Dunbar that was eventually fumbled and into the end zone and then went out of bounds. A couple of drops here and there. But, man, 450. He needed 424 to get to 5,000. He gets to 450. And all this week, head coach Scott Milanovich and a bunch of the players as well said, listen, our main aim is to win the ball games. Win. I mean, that's what they get paid to do is win football games. They certainly did that tonight, because I know the discussion is going to be had tonight and probably next week as well, that let's see some of the players that we haven't seen as much this season, namely Taylor Powell and Talia Tungavaloa. And in those two regards, now that Bo has reached 5,000 yards, I think it's an easier conversation among the coaches and, of course, the players to have Taylor Powell, in my opinion, start in Ottawa. We shall see, and maybe even see a lot of Talia Tungavaloa. Click on the link in the chats to get on the show with me, or just offer your thoughts on tonight's game. Vote for your player of the game in the chat. You can do so on email, fifthquartershow@gmail.com. And you can also hop on X. The handle is at Rick Zamperin. And fire away. Use the hashtag 5th quarter. One other thing I want to mention before I offer my player of the game is that in the first quarter, whether you were at the stadium or watching on TV or listening on the radio, you will have heard the big news tonight. And I think it's big news. I think it's awesome news that Garney Henley finally is getting his number retired. And I know there was a lot of talk, and there has been for years, that Garney probably should have been the first player to have his number retired. An all-time great legend, Canadian Football Hall of Famer, former most outstanding player in the Canadian Football League in 1972, inducted into the Hall in 79, played on both sides of the ball, was just, and still is to this day, at 88 years of age, a phenomenal human being. So hats off, and a long overdue honor for one of the guys who's also on the Ticats Wall of Honor, Garney Henley. And I met Garney years ago, and he was just absolutely so giving of his time, and had so many amazing things to say about former teammates and the city of Hamilton and the fans of Hamilton. He is an absolute legend. All right, let's go to the chat. And actually, before we get to the chat, my vote for player of the game. I don't know if this is an easy choice, but I think this is the obvious choice. And actually, before I get to my vote for player of the game, one more milestone was reached tonight, and that was Tim White, over 1,000 yards once again. 3 seasons now for TW12, if we can call him that. Thought he had a good game, a couple of drops, well over 100 yards tonight, both he and Dunbar. In fact, Stephen Dunbar, 7 catches, 146 yards, and White had 5 receptions for 128. They each scored 2 touchdowns, and Greg Bell was great as well, especially on that last run. 15 carries, 139 rushing yards, and the defense played well as well. They forced 4 turnovers, interception, a fumble, a couple of turnover on downs. Amazing performance in the first half for sure. They kind of slowed down a little after halftime, but when it was kind of getting a little interesting, the Ticats said, all right, enough of that. We're winning this ball game. Okay, now my player of the game. Thank you for being so patient with me. Bo Levi Mitchell. I mean, the guy throws for 450. He gets 5 touchdowns. He's over 5,000 yards. He was sensational in the first half. Could do no wrong. I think he completed his first 10 or 11 passes in a row. And he was great. I mean, it was a great performance in the last home game of the season. And so many comments in the first half as Bo is slinging it and they're scoring TDs, and the defense is playing great and Calgary can't do anything. So many comments on social media to me and even on email were, where was this team in the first half of the season, right? A bit of it is, that growth as a team. This team has grown by leaps and bounds since game number 1. The other part of it, too, especially in the first half, is Calgary has checked out, and they checked out weeks ago. Unfortunately for them, it's playing on the edge, trying to get into the playoffs and being eliminated so long ago. They just didn't bring it tonight in the first half. Let's call a spade a spade. Calgary was bad, horrible in that first half, but let's give them some credit. They made it interesting in the second half. So, tip of the cap to them to not go down without any sort of fight. They did kind of fight back. But Bo Levi Mitchell, my pick for player of the game. Let's get to you now. Your vote for player of the game, your thoughts on tonight's game. Let's start in the chat. And Caitlin Ann says, good evening, Rick. We just walked home from the game. Awesome way to finish the last home game of the season. Absolutely so. I mean, can you have imagined if Calgary jumped out to a 30-0 lead? The 22,410 announced crowd at Tim Hortons Field, half of them probably would have said, all right, I'm out of here by halftime. But hey, it was the other way around, and good on the Cats for bringing down the hammer on the Stamps tonight. Aaron says, player of the game simply has to be Bo Levi Mitchell tonight. I think so. I mean, listen, Tim White had a great game. Dunbar was electric. Bell was good. A couple of guys on defense probably deserve, some kudos as well. Katsantonis is bringing the hammer. Nice to see Nick Usher back on the field. He made a difference. Katsantonis and DQ Thomas leading the team with 5 defensive tackles. I thought Richard Leonard looked pretty good on a couple of halfback blitzes, which was interesting. Casey Sales in the middle was good. So the defense, I thought, kind of stepped up, made some plays. Jonathan Moxey with some good plays throughout the ball game. So nice effort by the Ticats tonight on defense as well. The Bo Show is the subject line from an email from Val, and you can email as well, fifthquartershow@gmail.com, the number 5th, fifthquartershow@gmail.com. Val writes, well, even though it was lowly Calgary, that was great. Very proud of all the players. They look like they really had fun tonight. We had a good core for next. We have a good core for next. Next year, I'm thinking is what he means. Player of the game, obviously, Bo, with honorable mention to the great Garney Henley. Why not? Yeah, let's give Garney an honorable mention. Absolutely. Val from Halifax. Val, glad you enjoyed the game. It was a tremendous way to end the regular season at home. To X we go, and the handle is at Rick Zamperin. The hashtag is fifth quarter. David says, Tim White has had a decent game, but no way his salary for next year. Bo Levi Mitchell, reaction after that drop. I would even trade him. That would be interesting. I don't think Tim White is going to be going anywhere because, 1,000-yard receivers don't grow on trees. unless you're willing to trade the guy for something, I don't think that is going to happen. Alan says, player of the game for me, MOP award this year and over 1,000 more yards than second place in the CFL. Alan voting for Bo Levi for player of the game as well. Stan calls him a Stampeders legend, and certainly he is absolutely that. And Colton says, Bo. Hashtag Ticats. I'm guessing that's his vote for player of the game. That's what I'm going to make it official as. You can have your say on X at Rick Zamperin is the handle, and use the hashtag fifth quarter. Click on the link in the chat, and if you want me to repost it, let me know, and I will certainly do so. And you can talk to me on the show. Brad in the chat says they should have let Bo play the game out instead of victory formation. Player of the game, Bo Levi Mitchell. I get that to pad the stats. I think for the integrity of the game, though, and that was I wouldn't say a hot topic at Ticats practice this week, but a topic of discussion because, a lot of us media types were like, hey, Coach Milanovic, are you going to be starting guys like Taylor Powell and Talia Tungavaloa? And, Milanovic talked about the integrity of the game, and they're paid and they're there to win ball games. And like any ball game, the coach's job is to put the best players in the best positions to get that result. And so, why not start Bo Levi in this game? I mean, it made sense to me. But at the end of the game, it's 42-20. Do you want to throw another, 10, 15-yard pass just for another 10 or 15 yards? He's already over 5,000. He accomplished that, big-time milestone. I think they ended it in a classy way. Kneel it out. The game's over. Let's go home happy. And everybody did. Well, at least not Stamps fan or Stamps players. Heidi says, great last home game. Happy for Bo Levi to reach the 5,000-yard club. And Brad also says Bo Levi Mitchell for MOP while we're at it. I mean, it is not only one of the most interesting discussions among those who get to vote, and I am so grateful that I have a vote in this process, that you got to look at the numbers. And those numbers do include, I'll be frank, the record of the team. Not to say that the quarterback is the be all and end all, but a major component of that. And by and large, this is a quarterback's award, unless a running back like Brady Oliveira, or back in the day, you name the most outstanding running backs, of all time. If they had a career year, they would certainly be considered for this award. Only one defensive player, Solomon Elamimian, has ever won the MOP. I don't think anyone on defense, even though the likes of Roland Milligan have had an outstanding season, Tyrese Beverett, unbelievable. I'm not sure it's MOP status worthy, but for Bo, certainly he's got to be in the mix. 5,000 yards, 1,000 yards more than Zach Caleros. That's crazy. Those are crazy numbers, but only 6 wins. And I think some of the voters are going to be looking at that and say, I don't know if he deserves it. I certainly gave him my vote. I'll be candid. I think he's the MOP of the Ticats for sure. Probably even of the East Division and maybe of the whole Canadian Football League. Caitlin says, is Bo Levi going to lead the Ticats to a Grey Cup in the next 3 years? Well, Caitlin, that's a great question. I know he's under contract for one more season, and that's 2025. So he and Taylor Powell, who's also under contract next year, and Talia Tungavaloa, who is also under contract for next year, will all be at training camp. And, barring some crazy retirement or a trade that no one is kind of forecasting, all those 3 guys will be competing at McMaster University next spring, which should be exciting. But I'll say yeah to that question. Why not? This team has won only 7 games. I shouldn't call them 6-10 now, 7-10. 7 out of 17 games. If they can reverse that number and go 10-7, 11-7 next season, they'd certainly be in the mix to be a Grey Cup contender. We'll see if that happens. Adi also says he's my player of the game, Bo Levi, and Fear the Conspiracy says big game by Bo. You can click on the link in the chats to chat with me. You can email the show, fifthquartershow@gmail.com. You're seeing it on your screen right now. And of course, we all want you to vote for your player of the game. You can also hit me up on social media. I'm on X. The handle is @Rick Zamperin. Use the hashtag fifth quarter, and I'll read your commentary. This one, hot off the presses from Jeff on X, who says, hey, Rick, Garnie Henley was my late father's favorite player. He was never able to meet him, so I arranged to meet Mr. Henley and get my dad's jersey signed back in 2019. He was more than happy to do it. Very nice guy. Absolutely. Garnie Henley is an absolute legend on and off the field. Super nice guy. Always made a lot of time for anyone who wanted an autograph or a picture or a little quick Q&A session. He's a treasure, a national treasure. Tiger on X says impressive performance all around, encouraging signs, but there will be some tough choices in the offseason. Feel bad for Woods. His return was incorrectly called back. The real winner was me for winning a $5 pizza gift card at the game. Player of the game, Bo Levi Mitchell, hashtag fifth quarter. Tiger Sammy, congrats on winning that $5 GC to Pizza. Use it well, my friend. Use it well. Jimmy V says, good company, player of the game tonight. That's how you put on a show at home. Great job, Oski Weeby. He's voting for Bo Levi Mitchell as well, who has all 10 votes as of right now. And Ashton with a great point. I didn't even think of this, but he's 100% right. Ashton on X at Rick Zamperin says, of course, Bo would have a milestone night against his former team. And one other note as well, and I'm not sure Manny or any of you noticed this when Bo Levi Mitchell was chucking the football around tonight, is that for the first time, at least to my memory this season, this was the first time that Bo Levi Mitchell wore a glove during the game. And for years, he has been wearing a glove to throw the pigskin around. But all season long, this season, he has been gloveless and licking his fingers to no end. And I think maybe tonight he just thought, you know what? It's time to bring the glove back. Well, the glove was certainly lovely, and it worked for Bo Levi for sure. Hit me up on the chat. Send me an email, fifthquartershow at gmail.com, fifthquartershow@gmail.com. Click on the link in the chat. I'll repost it so you can see it, and hit me up by appearing on the show with me. Be happy to chat with you. Who's your player of the game? Who deserves your vote? Is there someone other than Bo Levi Mitchell to get your vote? I think he's going to be going away, the big time winner today. The Gnarled Branch agrees. His player of the game, Bo Levi Mitchell. And I hope you continue the show in some form during the playoffs. What a strange season. Next year should be interesting, as what most Ticat fans say year after year. Salutes to Garney. Absolutely. So, on the first point, yes, the fifth quarter show will continue throughout the playoffs. So what the plan is for, after the East and West semifinals, we're going to do a show. After the East and West final, we're going to do a show. So those two nights, we'll have a fifth quarter show. Certainly after the Grey Cup, we'll do a show as well. And then during the offseason, we're going to have some content, live content like this for you, talking about potential free agents for the Ticats, who they should be going after, what their needs, according to you and according to me and according to insiders around the league, should be. We'll do a show on the offense. We'll do a show on the defense and special teams. And I've also invited Commissioner Randy Ambrosi to join me on a future show as well. So you'll be able to tune into that. I'll be tapping up some current and future Ticats, some current and maybe future Hall of Famers as well. So throughout the offseason, there will be content live and recorded on the fifth quarter show here on YouTube. So yeah, subscribe, hit the notification bell, tell your pals, and we'll have a great time during the off season. There will be lots to talk about during the year. Hey, we got our first appearance from Big Ticats fan who is joining us here on the fifth quarter show as always. Big PF. How are you?
Good. How are you, brother?
I am fantastic. What did you think about tonight's ball game?
It was the first half, dominant, and then they were playing like a team in the first half, defense, offense, everything. And then in the second half, it was like, oh, here we go, where we were winning as a team good, and we're starting to fall back a little bit as a team, but they pulled through as a team at the end. But yeah, it was an interesting game, but right on. That's a big win, and that's shows appreciation to the fans. Like, hey, like we're not giving up. Let's go. We're going 25 years officially this year without a Grey Cup. Yeah. Don't worry, the one's coming home soon.
How were you feeling when Calgary started coming back? Because I mean, it was 30-0 at one point. All of a sudden, it's like 33-20.
Yeah, that's when I was like, because like Calgary's like, they started off decent and then they just plummeted, and we started off just losing games at first just by like a small margin, and then we started to fall off as they were still doing all right, and then it went vice versa. But we all knew he had to have a game to dominate his former team. I was in Calgary with my good friend Jeff from Edmonton. He just made a shout out earlier. Like, I don't know. It's just it's weird. Like when we went to Calgary, it was like Bo was he wanted to win that game, but it was the first game of the season. But at the end of it, like, no, you finished it off right, because if he went 0-2 against Calgary, oh, especially the season he has, that would have been like a kick in the butt.
Yeah, absolutely. So is Bo your player of the game tonight?
Yes, he is. Yes, he is. I was back and forth on who I was going to give the game ball to, because it was like, oh, defense, offense. And then, but the way Bo performed, that interception he had, that was just a well played on the defensive end, just reading it right, and the reaction was right, and you can't blame Bo for that. But there was also a couple of good passes by Bo that Tim White dropped, and Dunbar, and we got lucky off that Dunbar fumble there. And but no, it goes to Bo. He had the game he should have had against his former team to make him regret. Oh, you're going to stick with Jake Mayer? Well, look at me. I'm still kicking ass, but I'm like pushing 40.
Yeah. Well, he's not there yet. We had a phenomenal tonight. Big Time fan, always appreciate you calling in. Appreciate it. Enjoy the rest of the weekend.
Hey, I just got one more thing to say. I appreciate you keep going the fifth quarter going, and I want to make a shout out to my best friend Jeff in Edmonton. It's his son Hayden's 14th birthday today, so nice. I want to make a shout out to him, and go Cats go. Hey, he's a diehard like us, so let's keep the tradition going.
Absolutely. Happy birthday, Hayden, and big Ticats fan. Have a great one.
You too. Happy football.
You got it. Oski wee wee. Big Ticats fan joining us here on the fifth quarter. You can too. You can just click on the link in the chat and talk to me on the show. Brad says either Garney or Mosca should have had their number retired first. Yeah, I agree. I think Garney should have been first. Mosca second. You can make a case for John Barrow as well. I mean, phenomenal. And I mean, there's probably a lot of Ticats players over the years that we say, you know, their number should be retired. Hamilton, in fact, I was going through the list of retired CFL numbers. Hamilton has among the lowest or fewest number of retired numbers. Bernie Filoni, number 10. Garney Henley, number 26 as of next year. And then Angelo Mosca, number 68. 3 players as of next year will have their numbers retired. Calgary has a bunch. BC has a bunch. Montreal has a lot. Toronto does as well. Saskatchewan, Ottawa. There are 2 teams, Winnipeg and Edmonton, that have a bunch of unofficially retired numbers. So numbers that are honored, so to speak, but not officially retired. I don't think many people wear number 1 in Edmonton, but it's not officially retired. If I'm a player in Edmonton, there's no way I'm wearing Warren Moon's number 1. No way. Alan on X, the handle is @RickSamperin. The hashtag is fifth quarter. Alan says the ghost of Mark Washington past came out for that Calgary defense in the first half. Did they find his playbook in the locker room somewhere? Who are you cheering for in the Grey Cup? Thanks for the home game, post-game calls this year. Alan, thank you so much. Who am I cheering for in the Grey Cup? Man. I don't know yet, to be honest. I mean, I can't cheer for Toronto, number 1. I don't think I'm cheering for Montreal because they won last year. I don't think I'm cheering for Winnipeg because they won a bunch of times already. So that leaves Ottawa. I can't cheer for the Red Blacks. Come on. BC, Saskatchewan. I don't know. BC maybe by default because they're the home team. But I'm not really comfortable in cheering. You know, like anything, when my team is eliminated, like, you know, the Maple Leafs will be at some point during the playoffs coming up next spring, and the Ticats, I kind of find myself kind of organically starting to cheer for a team I just, you know, kind of start watching. And then it's like, all right, I guess I'm cheering for this team now. So I guess we'll find out during maybe the East or West semifinals, or maybe even the East or West final. Chris says Mitchell must be the Eastern MOP candidate. You know what? I gotta agree. I mean, the other candidates are going to be, and I can see it right now. And I don't vote for the other teams. I vote for Hamilton's team awards, and then CFL awards as a whole. You know, I'll do the East Division and then the CFL awards. And I can guarantee you, Cody Fajardo is probably going to be Montreal's MOP. You know, you can make a case for a couple of the guys, but he's probably going to be the guy. Toronto is going to be interesting, but it could be Wynton McManus because he's been, you know, spectacular. And Ottawa, I'm not sure anyone that Ottawa puts up is going to usurp any of the three other players are going to be up for consideration. So if you have Bo and Cody and McManus, yeah, I'm giving the edge to Bo, to be honest. I mean, you look at the stats, you look at the wins and losses. Fajardo has missed a bunch of games. McManus has missed a bunch of games as well. I'm giving Bo the edge right now. Absolutely. Matthew, by the way, says preach, Murph. And I guess agreeing with his selection for Bo Levi for most outstanding player, at least in the East. Joe on X says, totally agree that he should be high on the MOP list. However, I'll never give it to a player on a non-playoff team. It's happened just a handful of times in CFL history. Joe also says 31 TDs, 5,000 yards, head and shoulders above the rest. If the Cats missing the playoffs will factor in him not being MOP. It could. There's going to be some voters who say, yeah, he had a great statistical year, but the team did not perform. Let's get to the email, fifthquartershow@gmail.com. The number 5th, fifthquartershow@gmail.com. This one is from Randy. Randy says, good evening, Rick. The first half was picture perfect with 4 TDs, but the offense was vacant in the third quarter. The Hamilton lead diminished too quickly. Thankfully, they held on. This is something they will have to work on for next year, maintaining the lead. Lots of drop balls tonight made it unnecessarily closer than expected. Good TDs by Tim White, Stephen Dunbar, and Giovanni Robinson. A special evening for the legend, Garney Henley. Talbot must give up that number 26, but had a reasonable game. My player of the game is an up and down season is Tim White. Some great moments tonight. Good running by Greg Bell. So do the Cats play Bo Levi next week or give the other quarterbacks a chance in their last season game? Perhaps only the first quarter. Congrats to Bo Levi Mitchell for over 5,000 passing yards, but not enough wins. One more game to go. Let's get a Hamilton win next game. A good start to the weekend. Oski wee wee from Randy, who is voting for Tim White for his player of the game. If you're just joining us and missed the team stats at the start, Bo Levi Mitchell, 24 of 37, 450 yards, 5 touchdowns, 1 interception. Greg Bell, 15 carries, 139 yards. He had that 52-yard romp at the end of the game. Stephen Dunbar Jr., 7 receptions for a game-high 146 receiving yards. White, 5 catches for $128. Keandre Smith, 4 for 72. Greg Bell also snagged 3 catches for 23 yards. Desmond Patton had 2 catches for 30 yards. Robinson, his only catch was the 27-yard touchdown. Tuck had 1 catch for 14 yards, and Tyler Tarnowski started the game with a 10-yard reception, and it was off to the races. Defensively, Stavros Katsantonis and DQ Thomas leading the way with 5 defensive tackles. fifthquartershow@gmail.com is the email. Another email coming in from Philly Filski, who says, well, this victory by the Tiger Cats in the toilet bowl between 2 non-playoff teams does not erase the stench of the season. Orlando Steinauer, the head architect of Ticat failures, must go, and Ed Controversial Hervey right behind him. I would suggest 2 things right now that would help this Tiger Cats team out of the CFL abyss. Dave Dickinson will surely get fired after this season. Hire him as your head coach and demote Milanovic and his head coaching losing record to scout. Trade Tim White to BC for Vernon Adams, who surely will not be holding Nathan Rourke's clipboard next year. I know Adams was here before, but only for a cup of coffee during the Johnny Manziel fiasco. Both of these players need a serious change in postal codes. I think Adams would do great here, backed up by the Tiger Cat faithful. And please, for the love of God, encourage James Tuck to retire. My grandmother can catch balls better than him. Love your show. Take care. That one from Philly Filski. So, I mean, he brings up some interesting suggestions, although I don't see Orlando Steinauer or Ed Hervey or Scott Milanovic going anywhere other than into the offseason with the current jobs that they have, unless they themselves get something better. I don't think the hammer is going to drop, even though this team is going to be sub 500, 8-10 at best, and not making the playoffs. I don't see major changes to the front office or the coaching staff. Again, unless they get offered something sweeter somewhere else, I think the whole gang, or at least most of it, is going to be back. Trading Tim White to BC for Vernon Adams certainly makes sense for Hamilton if you're not going to, run it back with Bo Levi. But I think Bo Levi's coming back, and is going to try to replicate what he did this season in terms of yards and touchdowns. We'll want a lot fewer interceptions as well. But this, I don't think this proposed trade doesn't make a lot of sense for BC. Yeah, they're trading an asset, but they have a bunch of receivers there. Now, would they, turn their nose at Tim White? Probably not. But they have some big budgetary concerns as well. It's an interesting thing to kind of speculate and kind of throw out there, but I don't see it flying, to be honest. Let's get back to the chat. And this message is from PNJ. Garney is the greatest of all time. And you got to throw that in the mix. Garney Henley playing both sides of the wall, winning Grey Cups, being the most outstanding player, a perennial all-star year in and year out. One of the best, not only one of the best Ticats, one of the best CFL players of all time. Absolutely. Aaron says, Rick, have you ever given any thought to a live stream during a game? Yes, I've thought of that. It might be a bit hectic, but I have thought of it. Maybe we'll make it happen in 2025. Maybe we'll try it out for a preseason game. They're not necessarily on TV. I don't know if that'll work or not, but yeah, I have thought of that. We'll probably launch that in 2025. Chris says, player of the game, Bo. Yes, let's get back to player of the game comments and what you thought about tonight's 42-20 beatdown. Ticats over the Calgary Stampeders. Hamilton forcing 4 turnovers, by the way. They scored 13 points off those 4 turnovers. Calgary had one. That was the pick 6 by Trey Roberson, who was absolutely outstanding. Kirsten says, hi, Rick. And I'm not sure Kirsten made another comment for at least a few messages. We'll get down and we'll see what she had to say. Chris says, good win and finish by the Cats. Calgary is the worst team in the CFL. And Chris says, can Mitchell play at this level another year older in 2025? That's a good question. And it's a legitimate one because we know that some players, when they get a certain age, they start to diminish. And I thought at some point we would kind of see that from Bo Levi. At least, when he got benched, I thought, okay, here is the demise, right, of BLM. He's going to go down because Taylor Powell, I thought would do a decent job, but he gets hurt. Bo comes back in, and he's been one of the best, if not the best, quarterbacks in the second half of the season. Dave in the chat also says, #Zamp the legend. Dave, thank you so much for the kudos. Hey, we got Colton calling in the show. How are you? Welcome to the Fifth Quarter Show on YouTube.
Not bad. How about you, Rick?
I'm fantastic. Thanks for chiming in. What are your thoughts on tonight's game? Who's your player of the game?
Well, I think player of the game, obviously, is Bo. What was the stats? 300 plus yards, 5 touchdowns. That's pretty good, I think. And just the thoughts on tonight overall. It's a good way to end the year at home. Can't ask for much better than how we played today. I know Calgary's not very good by any means, but it was good to see. Skunk. Sorry, Rick, just running past the skunk right now. We're walking back to our car.
Don't get sprayed. Whatever you do, don't get sprayed.
No. It ran away. It ran away like Tim White runs away from jump balls in the other team's red zone. No, but in all honesty, it was a good game. It was the atmosphere at the stadium was awesome.
It was.
So it's good to see Ticat fans always, come out and support the team no matter what. And just a thought about Bo, and they say, oh, we got to trade for Vernon Adams and we got to do this. The guy just passed for over 5,000 yards, 32 touchdowns in a season. He still has one more game left. I don't know if he'll start against Ottawa, but we got to take a look at the guy we just paid. And I know I've been beating this horse a lot, but we got to take a look at the guy we just paid a whole bunch of money for in the offseason and just didn't perform well during the season. You know what I mean? Today he had a good first half, and then the second half, he drops balls. So it's just so frustrating. So I think if we get more committed, we need a couple more guys like Keandre Smith in the receiving core, guys who are willing to go up and battle for balls and come down with balls, because I think that'll help this team in the long run for sure.
Keandre's had a great season. In fact, he's, I think, one of the up-and-coming, maybe, and he might already be there, one of the best Canadian receivers in the game. Reliable, versatile. You can plug and play, really at any position in the receiving core. Tough guy. You mentioned, he doesn't have the alligator arms when he's in traffic. Solid dude as well in the locker room. He's, to me, he's close to 10 out of 10.
Yeah, we were just down on families on the field because of the last game of the home season. So
yeah.
My wife and I got Stavros Kasantonis' autograph. I got Bo's autograph, and she got Keandre Smith's autograph. And yeah, you're right. He just seems like a solid dude. Just a good locker room guy. And you need guys like that, right? So I don't know. Hopefully, I don't know if I can see this team missing the playoffs again next year, but who knows, right? CFL is so funky. We can go into preseason next year and half the guys on the team this year could be gone, right?
Yeah.
So it is what it is. I mean, oh well, you can always look forward to next year.
It'll be an interesting offseason. I think most of the players will be back. I think most of the change, again, I hesitate to say this, but it'll probably be on defense. But let's hope that, the changes lead to improvement. At the end of the day, as fans, that's all we want to see.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, that's true. And just, hopefully the fans just keep the energy going in the next year, because best place to be a fan in the CFL is Hamilton, I think, hands down, bar none. And then the best post-game show in the CFL is the fifth quarter, too. So
I appreciate that. Colton, thanks for calling in. Have a great weekend.
you too.
All right, that is Colton calling in. You can as well, and the link in the chat, I'm just going to repost it here. Yes, I've learned to copy and paste the link to call in. I've learned my lesson. Chris says, Tim White, send him off to another team, whining about the other guys while missing key opportunities. Not a team guy. Hasta la vista, says Chris. Karen says, Bo Levi Mitchell, player of the game. Bo Levi, 450 tonight through the air. The fifth Ticats quarterback to throw for more than 5,000 yards in a season. Henry Burris did it. Danny McMaster did it twice. Kevin Glenn and Jeremiah Masoli, the last to do it in 2018. Bo Levi getting it done tonight. Chris also saying the Stamps need a major overhaul. And Brad says, did Rick's internet go down? Oh, no. Did it go down? Did you guys lose me? Oh, geez. Or maybe Brad's internet went down. I don't know. Hopefully you're still with me. Have another with Espo. I love the handle. Says Bo putting up 450 and 5 touchdowns without Bridges is a big boy statement game. That is a big boy statement by Have Another with Espo. You are right. One of the key and maybe the best receiver, arguably, of this Ticats team this season, leading the team in snags, up there close to 1,000 yards. For a first-year guy, an unbelievable player, great guy in the room as well, good glue guy. You talk about catch radius, catching in traffic, catching on second down, converting into the first down. Shamar Bridges, absolutely incredible. And not having him for this game, and of course for the next game, because he's gone for the rest of the season with a quad injury. Bo Levi spread it around today, right? Whether it was Dunbar, Timmy White, Keandre, Greg Bell out of the backfield, Patman with a couple of catches, and the big tosses to guys like Robinson, and even one for 14 yards to James Tuck, who managed to hold on. It was a big performance for Bo Levi. Stephen in Penticton, BC, with an email, fifthquartershow@gmail.com. Stephen says, greetings, Rick. Great way for the Cats to finish their home games. Fantastic crushing win for our Cats. Bo must be in the running for MVP. Just because her Ticats will not be in the playoffs means nothing. MVP is a single player award, not a team award. 1,000 plus yards more than anyone else. Player of the game, Bo. As always, many thanks for the fifth quarter, Rick. Regards, Stephen in Penticton, BC. 16 votes have been cast for player of the game, 15 of them to Bo Levi, 1 to Timmy White. Ron X, use the hashtag fifth quarter at Rick Zamperin is the handle. And Jeff just chiming in on Garney Henley's number 26 being retired by the Tiger Cats at the home opener next season. Jeff says it's about time, to be honest. And Jeff, I think we're all nodding our heads saying, yeah, it is absolutely about time. Joe on email, fifthquartershow@gmail.com. Joe says, hi, Rick. Fabulous game by Bo. I really like Bell. Hope he's back next year. I think the other East teams are glad that the Cats are out of the playoffs. Dunbar Jr. had a great game. Player of the game, Bo Levi Mitchell. Joey M. from Bright, Ontario. Beautiful. Bright, Ontario. Back to the chat, and then we'll go back to the email real quick. Karen says, totally agree. Garney's number being retired is well overdue honor. Yeah, absolutely. B. Gross says, great win. Player of the game, or Bo for player of the game. John says, Tim White's season of drops cost us at least a game and possibly a playoff spot. Well, let's not forget. I want to pile on Tim White here because, he had a good game. He had a good season. And he could have had an even better season if he hung on to balls like the one last time around against Winnipeg or earlier this season against Calgary. And yeah, you're not going to catch them all, but man, those drops that he did have were big ones because they were clear TDs or, monster games or gains. And those are the ones you kind of look back on, think, could have, would have, should have. Amanda says Earl Winfield should be retired. Number one. I mean, yeah, there's probably a lot of Ticats players that we can go back and say, why isn't their name or number, off limits? I'm not sure this team would have any numbers left, to be honest. But yeah, there's a few. Earl Winfield's probably up there as well. You think of guys like Danny McManus, who didn't spend 15 years here, but the time that he was here, won a Grey Cup, was an absolute legend in the community. Um, and is an all-around, amazing guy, and spent part of his development in the front office capacity with the Tiger Cats. He was a scout, did some great stuff with this team, and try to uncover those hidden gems from down south, and brought a number of amazing CFLers from down south. John says, just got my email in. Okay, thank you, John. Paul says, just logged in. We are the best team right now to miss the playoffs. Bring on 2025. Paul looking forward to next season. I think a lot of this are games like this. When you beat a team by 22 points and you lead 30-0 at one point, it gives you hope, it gives you some energy, gives you some, let's go for next season. Unfortunately, we're gonna have to wait, 6-7 months for that to happen. John also says 4 receivers with almost 1,000 yards. Bridges would have had it. Smith and Dunbar could get 1,000 yards still. No, you don't get rid of Milanovic. Chris Jones and Milanovic working well. We are obviously improving. Tim White is still have it and telling better with Mitchell. Greg Bell should be the starter next season, saving money, not keeping Butler. I think we all know that James Butler, as phenomenal as a guy he is and has had a really good CFL career, I don't see it continuing in Hamilton next season. He's going to look for opportunities elsewhere, and I'm sure he's going to stick with the team in 2025, and will probably stick it to the Cats next season. That usually happens. Player leaves Hamilton, goes to another team, and then has a great game against the Tiger Cats. Harley says, hey, John E., I agree. Milanovic and Jones need to stay and carry the team forward next season. And John says McManus played well until 40, but Mitchell hasn't slowed down at all. He's doing well. Paul also says, I saw Talia warming up in the 4th. Give him the start in Ottawa next week to see what he can do. So this is going to be interesting, Paul. And this again, was a topic of discussion at Ticats practice earlier this week. Was, listen, you guys are out of the playoffs. The question would be, you guys are out of the playoffs. Are you going to be starting, players on the practice roster or guys who haven't had a chance to start or play a lot of minutes this season? And head coach Scott Milanovic said, listen, our, priority number one is to win. They get paid to win. They're competitive guys. They want to win. Even with, the statistical milestones, head coach Scott Milanovic made mention that, listen, he's not going to be standing on the sideline with a calculator, monitoring who's doing what. The flow of the game kind of prevents him from doing so. Now, he might get a whisper in his ear to say, hey, you know what, Bo is like 20 yards, or at one point, 15 yards away from 5,000. Maybe at halftime, they kind of took a look at, how well he was playing and probably got a pretty good idea. I don't remember what the number was at the time. I think it was like 309 at halftime or somewhere close to 300. And so they had a pretty good idea that it was a magical night for Bo, and let's just let it ride. And so it kind of worked out today. Next week, though, again, not in the playoffs. Bo's reached 5,000 yards. Tim White's reached 1,000. Does Tim White play? Does Bo play? Do we start Powell? Or do we start Tagovailoa to see how he will start a game? That's going to be interesting. That's going to be an interesting discussion this week, because they won the final home game of the season. They're a little closer to 500. We all know they're not going to get there. It's impossible. 8-10 is the best they can do. But we, as fans, want to see guys who we think can propel this team forward. And, the backup quarterback, and, in Hamilton's case as well, the third stringer, they're interesting. They're interesting prodigies in terms of getting this team ultimately to the promised land. Whether they'll be able to do it or not, we at least want to get at least a sliver or a nugget of kind of proof to say, yeah, they might turn into something pretty good. Talia was also warming up at the start of the game as well. He's throwing the rock on the sideline, getting the arm warmed up, and neither Powell nor Tagovailoa ever saw the field tonight. So we'll see what happens next week. I have a hunch that Powell is going to start, and he might just get the whole game. And maybe Tagovailoa comes in on short yardage or whatever the case is. John says, don't risk playing Bo. Do we remember that hit that took him out all season? Yeah, that was against Ottawa too. That's probably the way to go. Bo, you got 5,000, had a great season. Take a seat, have a rest, well-deserved. Click on the link in the chat to join me on the show. You can hit me up on X at Rick Zamperin is the handle. Use the hashtag fifth quarter or on email, fifthquartershow@gmail.com. Here's a bit of a lengthy one from Alan, so bear with me. Alan writes, "Hey, Rick, it's Alan from St. Catharines. Last week, we found out we were out of the playoff race when Toronto beat Winnipeg, but this game and next game is good to evaluate what we have going into next season." Something I was just kind of talking about. For this game tonight, I like that the Cats came out playing hard, like the game had meaning and not giving up, and they're high-fiving each other and everything. Bo Levi had 5 TDs tonight and over 450 yards, 24 of 37, 64.8% passing percentage. Most impressive is that he had over 5,000 yards passing this year and over 1,000 yards better than the second-place passer, Zach Caleros. He's finishing the season healthy and looking good and strong going into next season. Allen continues, "We have a lot to build on for next year. Greg Bell looks like our starting running back next year, saving us a lot of money if we do not sign Butler. We also have Ante Litre, who is effective and backup for Bell. Nice to see White get 1,000 yards. Had Bridges been playing, he would have been at 1,000 yards. Also, I believe Dunbar and Smith could hit 1,000 yards. Also, 4 1,000-yard receivers on a 7-10 record season. At 0-5 start hurt us at the start." Alan, continuing with his email here, fifthquartershow@gmail.com. Alan says, "Calgary did catch up, but we persevered, and Mitchell puts in another touchdown to seal the deal with minutes left. There is not much more for Mitchell to prove, and based on bad luck last year with him getting injured at the end of the season, I'm not risking next game that doesn't mean nothing to us. He's proved to us he's got it. It's time to see what Taylor Powell and the other guy can do for us. He should win MOP award. Chris Jones is a big factor with us playing well since Washington left, and it will only improve if we don't mess it up in the offseason too much. Player of the game, like I said, is Mitchell. Let's not risk him next week, or it could prove costly." Cats. Alan with that very detailed email to us. And I appreciate you, Alan, for writing that. Big win for the Ticats tonight, 42-20. Hamilton now 7-10. The Stampeders fall to 4-12-1 in front of 22,410 fans. Back to the chat. Nona says, "We can see you." Okay, excellent. Nick says, "Bo is my player of the game. I think we make changes. We need some run stoppers to stuff the run. Winnipeg keeps pushing us around with the run game." That's a great point. Winnipeg was running at will last time around. Brady Oliveira, who's a great running back, is going to get his yards, but when he's getting 6, 7, 8 on the first carry on 1st and 10, man, that's not good. I think guys like Simone Lawrence and certainly Ted Laurent in their heyday would have stuffed that from time to time. This team needs to get better, especially up the middle. I like Stavros Katsantonis at the safety position, absolutely. But that linebacking core, it improved throughout the year, but I think there's something lacking. There's, it doesn't have that kind of venomous tone to it. No one really scares you in that linebacking core in terms of they're coming down the tracks and they're going to hit you into next week. And I'm not, promoting guys injure guys, but you need that fear factor on defense that when the running back is going to hit the A or B gap or try to get around the tackle, that there's going to be some punishment. And the next time around, he's going to be thinking about that. That's just how football is played defensively. And I think as Ticats fans, that's the defense we want to see. A ferocious, not in my house, not in this game, not on this night kind of D. And we haven't seen it for a while. We didn't see it much this season. That is for sure, especially out of the linebacking core. So I think that is definitely an area of improvement. There are guys that I like there, like Moxie. I thought he did a great job when he came in the linebacking core, but I like him in the secondary as well. He's a versatile guy. Let's not forget, Jamal Peters didn't play in tonight's game. If he were, that kind of moves things around. Cameron Dantzler, I think, is going to be a big part of this team next year at the other cornerback position. This secondary already is looking okay. Now we got some guys that can, grab the football in terms of interceptions, can, stuff any kind of long bombs or, cut the field in half. We need that linebacking core and, especially the front four to get to the quarterback a little bit more. They were decent at times, but again, not game-changing. Nothing electric out of that front seven for sure. Paul says, player of the game, Bo Levi. Aaron says, anybody else getting some bad lag? Okay, well, I'll mark that down. I'm not sure I can do anything about that because I haven't changed anything, but hopefully the lag is done. Colton says, Rick, is that the first time a caller has almost been sprayed by a skunk? Husky wee wee. Colton, yeah, absolutely. Even in the old fifth quarter days, I cannot recall anybody being almost sprayed by a skunk. That would have been a first for the fifth quarter. Harley says, cheers, Colton, go Cats go. Nona says, it's not working smoothly. Could be on your end. Interesting. Ryan says, if we had an edge rush, we would be playing in November this year. This is what I'm saying. Nick Usher took some steps this year. Barlow and Hendricks were okay. I thought they were better in their final season in Toronto, and I expect a little bit more out of them. Casey Sales, I think, has been good, solid all season long. But no guys really in that front four, in the front seven, to be honest, really jumped off the page this season. As a group, okay, but not good enough. When you're 7-10, not good enough. That is for sure. Lisa, this is such a great end of the season. Thanks as always for keeping it for us, Rick. Lisa, my pleasure, no doubt about it. Ryan says, Powell doesn't interest me. I'm dying to see Tua Jr., though. So it's Talia, not Tua Jr., but I get what you're saying. Interesting comment that Powell doesn't interest you. I am interested by Taylor Powell because as a rookie, let's not forget, he came into camp 9 days into camp last year in his rookie season. Then he's thrust into the starting role because Bo Levi and Matthew Shields go down with injuries. I think Powell, again, as a rookie quarterback, still learning this game, and he admitted that throughout the season last year, I thought he performed well. I mean, not outstanding and not horrible. He was solid. I think that's a fair statement for a season in 2023. I want to see where his ceiling is at. And we're not going to see that next week if he starts. Might get a little bit of a glimpse. I want to see him, for another stretch of time, see if he can take a step forward, see if he can be that electric starting quarterback that this franchise has craved for many years. I think we got that in a handful of games from Bo Levi this season. Tonight being a glaring example of that electricity that a starting quarterback can bring to a team and score a bunch of points and do them in kind of big chunks. And Bo did that tonight and in a few games as well, threw 5 touchdowns against Edmonton earlier this season. So I want to see where Taylor Powell's ceiling is at. For Talia, I have no idea. I watched him in college like I do a bunch of other players, quarterbacks, and other position players. And yeah, he was good. But again, from the college ranks to the pro ranks, whether you're talking CFL, NFL, UFL, I mean, you name the league, the pro game, especially for quarterbacks, is so much quicker. Guys are coming at you quicker. Things are happening faster. Let's not forget the 20-second play clock in the CFL, much different from what is happening in the NCAA and even in the NFL. The motion, the extra guide, both on offense and defense. Just getting used to so many new players. I think for Talia, it's going to be interesting to see him coming back into training camp, see what he can provide and get his first full season in the CFL. Probably again as a third stringer, I would suspect. Going to next year, seeing what we've seen this year, Bo is my number 1. Taylor's my number 2. And Talia, or maybe another guy that they bring into the camp, is going to be the de facto number 3. That's just how I see it kind of, working out here in Hamilton. Unless, I don't know, things get nuts and some kind of big trade happens. Click the link in the chat. You know what? I'm going to post it one more time, and you can join me on the show. You can send me an email, fifthquartershow@gmail.com, 5th@gmail.com, and vote for your player of the game. Talk about tonight's game. And if you want to talk about the whole season, we can absolutely do that as well. We're going to have one more edition of the Fifth Quarter Show after a Ticats game next week, actually 1 week from tonight. And then during the offseason, we're going to do a bunch more shows as well, live and recorded on free agency. We'll dissect the lineup. We'll have some special guests on throughout the offseason as well. We'll keep you informed. We'll do some playoff editions of the Fifth Quarter. It's going to be a lot of fun. Hopefully you can join me. Rich on email, fifthquartershow@gmail.com. Rich says, hi, Rick. And his subject line is day late, dollar short. Hi, Rick. Unfortunately, a great game, but we are a day late and $1 short. Bo carved up the Stamps D, but it was a meaningless game. Let's see what 2025 brings. Thank you so much for keeping up the Fifth Quarter. We appreciate you, Rich from Dundas. listen, Rich, you make some great points. It was a nothing game. We know that from both teams. Ticats, no pressure. Playoff chase is done. It's not a hectic winner go home kind of edge that they're kind of sitting on. They played, obviously, we saw tonight, very relaxed. And in the same sense, Calgary's done. They were done a long time ago. I mentioned at the start of the show, they checked out weeks ago. Unfortunately for Dave Dickinson, and I think he realized it at some point, that the team checked out. They were, and for the first time since 1946, winless on the road. 0-8 this season. First time since 46 that the Stampeders have not won a road game. That is a long time. They fiddled around with the quarterback position, which was not nearly good enough this season. And they didn't have enough weapons on offense. Their defense got carved up. Their special teams was okay. From the kicking point of view, the return game, really non-existent. Calgary is a team in rebuild mode. Absolutely. 100% confident in making that statement. How quickly they're going to be able to rebuild is a question and something I'm dying to hear. Can they do it relatively quickly? And if not, how long do they stay at the bottom of the standings? I don't know. Not sure. Colton says, just another thought, a full season with Chris Jones at DC will help a ton. Yeah, let's not forget, Chris Jones is not the defensive coordinator. He's a senior defensive assistant. Not to say that when he does become the defensive coordinator, I am expecting that in the offseason, that his job or his role is going to change. He's still going to be the guy calling the plays. He's still going to be the dude directing traffic when it comes to the Ticats' defensive scheme. I'm most excited, if he's going to be the guy, and I expect him to be the guy, to see the kind of complexity that he adds to the defense. Because let's not forget, this defense was getting trashed, shredded, week in and week out the first 5 weeks of the regular season, even a little bit longer than that. Chris Jones comes in for Mark Washington. And the first thing he does is, listen, we're not going to be making wholesale changes on this defense in terms of personnel. It's just not feasible in professional football, especially midway through the season. What we are going to do is simplify what we are doing. So we do it well. We do it well over and over and over, and that builds confidence, that builds continuity, that also builds trust between players on the field. And I think they kind of started to achieve that. We saw the defense make some big gains. So I think in the offseason, when Chris Jones is anointed as defensive coordinator, I think when he starts to stack the complexity of his defensive kind of genius and they improve the personnel on this defense, we just talked about in terms of the front seven especially, but I think maybe some more improvements in the secondary as well. This could be exciting. It could be an exciting offseason in terms of what they do with the D. A lot of work has to be done. But I kind of, looking at the progression of the team, looking at what could happen, this team could make a pretty impressive jump in 2025. A lot of things still have to go right. They have to stay healthy. Bo has to perform if he's going to be the guy. The receivers, got to come back and they got to do what they got to do. The offensive line has to continue to perform like they did today. So stuff still needs to happen. They can't have a big drop off, but they do need that defense to kind of catch up to what the offense has done this season. Lisa says, yes, let's see what other players can do, especially since it doesn't make a difference. Let's see how we can grow into something more consistent. Go Cats. Love the little cat emoji as well. And Strange Breeds is fantastic way to end the season. Really enjoyed watching this team grow. Bo is my vote for sure. Also, they reached over me to give Tiger Sammy his gift card, and that's a flag for major foul from me. I can see it now in the stadium. Strange Breed thinks he's getting the gift card to go to Pizza, that $5 gift card, and they're like, nope, it's Tiger Sammy's. Sorry, Strange Breed. Ian says, who do you think will replace Dickinson, and who do you think the Lions will trade Adams or Rourke? And where do you see them going? All right, let's do this one at a time. These are great questions. Thank you, Ian. Dickinson, I have two thoughts. Either one, they're going to say, listen, it just didn't work out. Let's do it again next year. Let's run it back, right? They'll have the Maple Leafs plan. I don't think that's going to happen. I think he is going to be given his walking papers after an illustrious career as head coach of the Stampeders. I think that the front office and John Huffnagel will say, you know what, it's time to turn the page. And no one will, bat an eye in terms of feeling sorry for Dave Dickinson. I'm talking about Ticats fans. Certainly it'll be a sad day for Calgary because he's done a remarkable job there. I'd love to see, and I don't think this is going to happen, but I'd love to see Mark Killam, the longtime special teams coordinator in Calgary, be given that promotion. I think he has done phenomenal job with that special teams unit over the years. I think he might have some interesting things to bring to the table in terms of, head coaching attributes. I love to see when teams kind of promote from within when it's deservedly so. I'd love to see Mark Killam be the new head coach of the Calgary Stampeders in 2025. Whether that's going to happen, I have no idea. There's probably going to be a number of candidates to take that job over. The other questions you had is, who do you think the Lions will trade, Adams or Rourke, and where do you see them going? So I had this conversation with another fan earlier this week, and I can't for the life of me, as poorly as he played in comparison to what he did a couple of years ago, I can't see BC trading Nathan Rourke unless the offer is too good to pass up. And I'm talking about, probably a couple of starting players, maybe one on offense, maybe one on defense. I think Vernon Adams is the more expendable product in BC. And certainly from a public relations aspect, you're bringing in a guy who was a superstar with your franchise a couple of years ago and was a legitimate MOP candidate and, didn't find success trying to latch onto a National Football League team. I think BC and their owner says, yeah, Nathan Rourke's our guy. We think he can bring his game to another level like we saw a couple of years ago, and they're going to trade Adams. Who they trade him to, that to me, that's more interesting because now we're talking about the possibility of another team, upgrading what they have at the quarterback position. The one team I keep coming back to is the Saskatchewan Roughriders. And I'm not saying Trevor Harris is a bad quarterback because this season he has shown at the age of, I think it's 37, he can still get the job done. But again, he's 37. And does Saskatchewan want to say, all right, we can go back to Harris, who has suffered some injuries over the last 2 seasons. So I always come back to Saskatchewan being maybe the leading candidate. I think it would be phenomenal in green. You look at Edmonton, I think, the future there is Trey Ford. Calgary, certainly a landing spot, but do the Stampeders have something that BC wants? Potentially, that could be a landing spot for sure. In the East, he's not coming to Hamilton. I really don't see that. Not going to Montreal, and he's not going to Toronto. I don't think he's going to Ottawa either. I think Drew Brown, they want to be the guy. Masoli has been a great story, but he's getting a little long in the tooth. Dustin Crum, I'm not 100% sold on him being a franchise quarterback. Vernon Adams is. I think Ottawa would do well to have him there, but I just don't see them after one season of Drew Brown being kind of the anointed starter out of the gate, having Vernon Adams, kind of take that spot. But hey, it is the CFL. Some strange things have happened for sure. Still in the chat. And again, you can go to email fifthquartershow@gmail.com. You can click on the link and join me on the show. And of course, we're talking about tonight's game, voting for your player of the game, Bo Levi Mitchell, with a runaway. He's got 21 votes. Tim White has one, who had a pretty solid game, but Bo Levi was absolutely phenomenal tonight. Jess says they need to hire an OC so Milanovic can concentrate on head coaching duties. And that might be a thing. Although, in some respect, Milanovic knows the role. He's done it well. If he thinks that it's going to be a plus for him to give up those duties, I can see it happening. But, tonight is a perfect example of Milanovic calling a good game and Bo executing it. And so I think when the coaching staff looks back, and certainly when Milanovic and Ed Hervey and Orlando Steinauer look back on this season, to say, could we have gotten more out of our offense if we had a designated offensive coordinator? Here's an offense again with a quarterback, the only quarterback in the league with 5,000 passing yards. The running back position, they split it between Butler and Bell. Didn't get a lot of either of those guys, even though Bell rushed for 139 tonight. The receiving core to have potentially 4 1,000-yard receivers, you start to stack all these kind of accomplishments and think, well, why? And I'm kind of speaking as the coaching staff. Why do we want to change that? We're having some success. My old adage, and I kind of stole it from Charles Oakley, the former Raptor, says, if it ain't broke, Don't break it. And I'm not sure the Ticats are going to break that kind of formula for scoring some points. Do they need to get better and win more games? Absolutely. I'm not sure taking the OC from Milanovic is going to, make this team win 2 or 3 more games. It's a good offseason question for sure, though. Jess, thanks for asking that. Have another with Espo says it's a CFL trade, guys. Even a star quarterback doesn't usually net more than a Canadian starter and a draft pick. Yeah, that is true, but it is also a star quarterback, and if you're desperate enough and there's competition for said star quarterback, the ante gets upped a little bit. Now, they're not trading 3 starters off offense or defense to get that star quarterback, but the price tag gets a little boosted. So I can see at least 2 teams, Saskatchewan and Calgary, and maybe Ottawa, being interested in the Vernon Adams sweepstakes, if we can call them that. Brad says Calgary desperately needs a franchise quarterback. I could see Calgary selling the farm for Adams. Yeah, absolutely so. James says, fantastic game. I still got nervous. Dunbar is my player of the game. All right, 1 vote for Stephen Dunbar Jr., who could have had a bunch more yards if not for the fumble at the start of the 3rd quarter. Stephen Dunbar with 7 catches, 146 yards, 2 TDs. If he didn't fumble that football, he maybe could have had over 200 yards. No doubt about that. Chris says, Tim White, RIP. I don't think Tim's going to get traded, to be honest. Here's a guy who's over 1,000 yards again, 3rd time in his career, has, pretty good chemistry with Bo Levi Mitchell. I have a hard time believing that the Ticats are going to say, yeah, you know what? One of the things we should do is trade one of our franchise star players. And again, he hasn't been perfect. We all know that. Tim White has had, his warts this season. There have been games where he's been absolutely invisible. And you're thinking, is he even dressed tonight? Yeah, he hasn't done anything. He hasn't even been targeted. There have been a couple of games like that. It is entirely okay to be frustrated with that. That is what fandom is all about. And so I think at the end of the day, when you see the complete kind of numbers, you got to say that, okay, Tim White had another good season. Could he have done better? Absolutely. Any player will say that at the end of the season. There are mistakes that are made, but I want him on my team. I think he can be a game breaker. We saw tonight some big catches as well. I think sometimes you just got to live with the inconsistency. Sadly, Brad says Tim White needs to ask Santa for a case of Stickum for Christmas if we keep him. Yeah, let's get him some sticky gloves. Did you notice, by the way? Not sure how many of you did. That for the first time this season, at least to my memory, I didn't notice this throughout the season at all, that Bo Levi was wearing a glove tonight on his throwing hand. And I don't think he was doing that at all at any point this season. This is the first time in 2024 that he said, you know what, I'm done licking my fingers to get some grip on this pigskin. We're going to don the glove. And, he did that. And the rest is history. 450 yards. The 5th Ticats quarterback to reach 5,000 in a season, joining Henry Burris and Danny McManus, who did it twice, Kevin Glenn, and Jeremiah Masoli, the last to do it in 2018. Brad says, I believe Bo wore a glove in the Toronto game as well. That, I think that might have been the case as well. I'll have to look back at the tape. But this is the first time, maybe this is the first time I just noticed that Bo was wearing a glove. Long story short, I think the glove is where it's at. He's had the most success with it. He's been to Grey Cups with it. I think he's got to wear it every game next season. We'll see. 4 turnovers tonight for the Ticats as well. They turned those 4 turnovers into 13 points. Calgary had 1 turnover. That was the Trey Roberson 65-yard pick 6. Really the only mistake that I won't say that Bo Levi made. I think it was Desmond Patman who was the intended receiver and just kind of waited for the ball to get to him, where he should have been a little more aggressive and kind of lunged at the ball, or at least, if anything, tackled Trey to prevent him from getting the pick. We'll see. Wear the glove, Bo. And Boveralls. Yes, bring the Boveralls back. That was electric when Bo Levi Mitchell was sporting the Boveralls. All right, we're close to wrapping up here on the 5th Quarter Show on YouTube. We are back next Friday night after the Ticats close out the regular season. They're in Ottawa, 7 o'clock start at TD Place Stadium in the nation's capital. We'll be on the air about 10 o'clock-ish or so, like we were tonight. Big, big, big tip of the cap to Garney Henley. His number 26 is going to be retired by the Tiger Cats, only the third number ever, joining Bernie Filoni and the great Angelo Mosca to have their numbers retired. That'll happen at the home opener in 2025. Voted by you, the fans. Player of the game, Bo Levi Mitchell. Phenomenal performance, 450 yards, over 5,000 for the season. Whether he starts next week or not, he's had a pretty good campaign. MOP worthy for sure. Whether or not that is going to materialize, we shall see. Brad, with a final comment, you made our season Rick. Hashtag all hail the Zamp. I love it. Thank you, Brad. We're back next Friday. And don't forget, Tuesdays, it is Sober Second Thoughts. I'll, rack my brain for some interesting comments on Tuesday's edition of Sober Second Thoughts. And every Thursday here on the Fifth Quarter Show, log on, click on that notification bell, and you will watch picks, props, and predictions. Weekly pick on a pick, a proposition during a game, and a prediction for what's going to happen CFL or otherwise. It's been a lot of fun. And of course, in the off season, we'll continue the show throughout the playoffs, have some great content in the off season as well. I've invited Commissioner Randy Ambrosi to join me on a future program. Hopefully that happens, and you'll all be entertained by some of the things that he says. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for the support. Thanks for subscribing. Remind your friends, if they haven't done so already, to subscribe to the channel. We're planning some pretty cool things for 2025, so stay tuned, not only throughout the offseason, but next season as well. Big win for the Ticats. 42-20 is the final. Hamilton 7-10, roaring into the final week of the regular season next week in Ottawa. Join me then for the Fifth Quarter Show on YouTube. Until then, Oski Wee Wee.